Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for September 2nd, 2021. It's actually like getting like fall weather, kind of. I'm in a beanie, my favorite piece of clothing. So welcome back, and welcome if you're new to this channel. Thank you so much for being here. Whether you are new or you are a dedicated viewer, it's so great to have you here. Yeah, it's September 2nd, 2021, and I hope everyone's doing well, taking very good care of themselves. Where I'm at in Pennsylvania, it definitely rained yesterday, and it rained all day yesterday, but we didn't get the torrential downpour that I'm seeing reported from other places about further east, right, into Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York. They really got slammed with the remnants of Ida. So prayers for those people, and that everybody is getting all of their needs met in the midst of all of this. So, today is a very interesting day. We're in a position here of taming our vital energies. I'm going to tell a little story here about the thumbnail image that we see. And wow, the lighting is just, can't control it at all. So Mars is in an opposition to Neptune today. We talked about this yesterday. Now it is exact today. And like I said before, this is an energy that is potentially very disempowering, right? You can feel yourself really losing something because Neptune, especially in Pisces, is dissolving everything it touches. And Mars really relies on this subjective and very strong presence of I am in order to, move forward, to have that cardinal energy of electricity, to move forward and to create and to be, really, and to act on that. And so with Neptune involved, sometimes the boomerang effect of this type of opposition is to enact this warrior energy, especially with Mars, right? Enact it even more to compensate. And I would really challenge you today and invite you, instead of maybe, snapping back on that because you feel the dissolution of your individual self into that collective, the collective cosmic consciousness and the substantiation of what we're all here to do together. There's a tendency to snap back. And I would really challenge and invite all of us to find that midpoint here. And in fact, utilize the position where Mars actually is in Virgo to tame those vital energies. So the story of Shiva, a real Cliff Notes version, okay? And if there's any scholars in Hinduism, Vedic, Vedic mythology and cosmology, surely you can jump in if you need to. But the short story, the Cliff Notes of Shiva, especially when it comes to the king snake wrapped around his neck, is that the king snake, filled with the venom, right, filled with the potency of the certain serpent medicine, the Kundalini, right, which is our vital energy. When we talk about vital energy, we are talking about the creative potential at the seat of us, right? In that sacral chakra. It's the waters of our vital energy. And so considering the fact that the ocean is so much involved with Pisces and we have Neptune here in this tension with Mars, so in this story of Shiva, the king snake, the highest representation of this serpent energy, these vital energies, is vomiting out all of this poison because the ocean is churning, right? And so the snake is not able to hold the intensity of even its own vital energy and is just vomiting it everywhere, which has the potential to poison everybody, right? It's poisoning the water, right? And the ocean is also churning. So the sacral chakra does represent the waters within us, and to a certain extent, even though there is the fire involved at that sacral chakra as well. But there is the seat of our creative potential is in fact coming from the amorphous, fluid, infinite potential that the ocean represents. So it's churning, and it's just too much for the snake to hold, and he's vomiting it up. And so Shiva, right? Shiva, as one of the main trinity of the Hindu cosmology, the creator and the destroyer, is in order to save everybody, essentially takes in all of the poison, right? Takes in all of the poison. But because of that, it is starting to have an impact on his body. And so his counterpart, Parvati, is hold on one second, guys. His counterpart, there we go. His counterpart, Parvati, I know that's not ideal, but it's better than the glare, is basically what she does is she gathers up all of the poison for him, has it situated in his throat, and then the king snake wraps around, okay? Now remember the throat chakra. This is where we actually transmit vibration through our voice, be it through singing, through speaking, through chanting, through toning. This is where the resonance of the Schumann resonance, right? Because the throat chakra resonates at that same frequency as the Schumann resonance resonates, right? Which is the electromagnetic frequency of our own planet. Resonates at that same frequency. Shiva's holding it all here, right? And the snake is wrapping around. So he's holding it for the sake of everybody else, right? So that the world is not poisoned. And what's interesting is that Shiva has blue skin. Blue is the color of the throat chakra as well. So there's a lot of things to unpack in that story, but it is really important that we are realizing that if we just let loose, right? If we let this vital energy that is welling up inside of us to create and to act, to just be released without any type of control or specifically some level of control and restraint and some discipline, hello Virgo, right? This is where we really risk having that substantiating something that is a very unconscious drive as opposed to a very conscious, very disciplined, and very devoted energy and an ideal, right? We want to substantiate something not just for ourselves, but for the collective. And that's what Neptune represents, is the collective unconscious, the infinite ocean of potential. And this is where we always return back to. Always. That is why it is the end of the astrological chart. The astrological wheel ends with the 12th house and Pisces. So we always go back to this place. And this is where we lose ourselves. We surrender to the flow and the infinite potential and eventually become substantiated again into that seed point of new growth and creation. But I can even feel it today really strongly. So yesterday we had this moment of stillness. We were invited to find that stillness, to find that space within us, to allow ourselves to receive. And surely I can speak from my own experience, definitely receiving quite a bit by creating that space within myself. Now, but because of this really strong energy with the Mars-Neptune opposition, right? The seesaw, more like a tug of war, honestly. There is that potential to snap back and risk losing all of that vital energy and having it be substantiated for something that is just our ego kind of coming into the picture and be like, no, I want my power back and I want to use it the way that I want to use it. And we're going to see today that there is a strong potential within us to feel a very, very heavy type of oppression in some ways within us, and to acknowledge that that is just part of the end of the cycle. And when we're feeling oppressed on the inside, this can cause uncontrolled, destructive burning. The 10 of Wands is what we're going to be looking at. And there is such a wonderful and beautiful opportunity in this moment today to really go within and very much cultivate and tame that energy, right? Hold it within us for the sake of not burning everything down that is around us. And I mean, I'm right with you. I am feeling it today. I've been already getting into it with, both sides of the aisle. If it's not one side of the aisle of people who think I'm a quack, it's the other side who claim to have some sort of spiritual authority on who is a higher spiritual being or not. And so I want to speak to that directly in a different broadcast entirely. In fact, we can live stream now on Telegram, which I'm really excited about because I have no interest in giving any of my energy to Facebook for, other than just staying present in that space for people who are still using it. But I think I might address this particular issue on Telegram in a live stream later. But in the meantime, let's get right into the reading and see what we're dealing with today. What has come through for us in the realm of the archetypal symbolic language that the tarot represents, right? This is just, like I said, it's all about the symbols. And, the symbolism will be their downfall, but surely it also is the way that we can understand our own journey as well. So as we see, we have our Hermit as our causal factor. Hello, can you say Virgo, right? Our sun is in Virgo. We have our sun is in Virgo and Mars is in Virgo in its opposition to Neptune and Pisces. So this really all hinges upon this type of energy being embraced, right? The Hermit, number 9, the Virgo energy, right? Which oddly enough, as much as it's the Virgo energy of the individual retiring from the outside world, we go into the darkness of ourselves. We listen to the inner voice. We care for the inner self. We take time for self-reflection and to really get into where the inner light comes from. And eventually you come back out when you come from the transition from Virgo into Libra, for instance, is when you take this inner light and then you shine it forward, right? You devote yourself to service to humanity, to your relationships, or whatever it is that Libra in the 7th house will represent for you. So, but it does require that we go within and be willing to listen to that inner voice. We cannot really get to this part of ourselves. The moon in Cancer, like I said, is really supporting this process right now. And she is still in Cancer. She will be in Cancer throughout the rest of today and will make the transition into Leo tomorrow afternoon or early morning if you're west of the East Coast of the United States. So keep that in mind too, that we see here that the fire within us is going to start wanting to come out as the moon transits into Leo over the next day. So this is very important for us to be able to harness right now. So again, the Hermit, this Virgo card, going into the depths, going into the inner self, being able to have some mental maturity about ourselves. And with the sun here and with Mars here, there's a lot of ability to act on this, to intentionally and with some courage and ambition and with some creative expression and passion with the sun here to go into these spaces. But it does require that we kind of, tune out all of the noise around us in order to go into this space, in order to search for our own internal wisdom. It's very easy to get caught up in wanting to not only be the purveyor, right, of this and consistently outputting, and we talked about yesterday, but also too to rely on other sources of information to give you a sense of what's going on. And so my real goal here is not to tell you what's going to happen. Right. That's more of that's prophecy. And for as much as astrology is able to forecast potentials, it's not really about telling you what's going on. It's teaching you how to utilize these cycles and the energetics that are attached to them to come to your own conclusions, to know truth within yourself. So what we see here is the causal factor is coming into the moment is that we've embraced this Hermit energy to begin with, right? Listening to the inner voice, self-reflection, caring for the inner self, really getting into the Virgo aspect of things. And with Mars here, it does give us the courage to go into these darker spaces when we don't know exactly what's going to be down there. And when we're so used to having the outside stimulation inform us of what we believe or what we acknowledge as, truth, for instance, Mars can give us the ability and, like I said, the courage and the drive to actualize ourselves through this inner process. So this is bringing us into the moment. So I do feel like that many people, since this is a reflection of a general reading here, that many people on a collective level have taken that step where on some level, either subconsciously in their dream state or taking a conscious step, went into this space and really got into the stillness, into that 0 point we talked about, and allowed themselves to really listen to their inner voice. Okay. And now we find ourselves coming into the heart of the moment. This Queen of Wands, there's been so many court cards lately coming out in this heart position, right? The center of it all, that we're really engaging with a lot of different parts of ourselves on every day or people in our lives are representing this energy too. So, and there's a lot of queen energy, right? There's a lot of feminine energy as well. You see the Queen of Scrolls came back. Now she's upright. We had the Knight yesterday. We had two queens yesterday. So again, this represents that receptive, still, passive, and don't take that. That's a loaded term. So don't take that so literally as that you do nothing. It's about being still and creating a space within you in which creation can happen. So, but the Queen of Wands is combining these opposing elements of the water and the fire. So here we have Neptune and Pisces as the water, and then Mars specifically as the fire. But Mars is much more of a in the sign of Virgo, is more balanced out with the feminine aspect, devotion and service and training, right, of the self. And so this Queen of Wands, she is combining opposing elements for an alchemical process. She is, this woman, if this is you, this is somebody in your life, this woman is, this queen, right, is in fact a very, very powerful, okay? Look at that, she's towering, right? She's got the pine cone, which has been the symbol of the pineal gland for ages, is on the head of her staff, right? So this is a very masterful and very strong ability to, how do I say this? Not harness the third eye energy, but to specifically to be able to hold it, right? To be able to hold it, just like Shiva, holding all of the potency of that serpent medicine within his own throat chakra, so it won't poison the rest of the world, right? As the creator and destroyer. That's the role that Shiva plays. And so this individual, whether it be us or somebody in our life that it's at the heart of the matter, maybe it's outside of us, maybe it's somebody that's representing this to us, and a lot of this feels like that it is really us right now, that we are holding this. Now, this individual as an archetypal representation, you have to be very careful about where the focus is, because she has a tendency to be revengeful and just burning it all down. And because she is tapped into the spiritual nature, boy, she can really get into your head and get into your energy field and utilize that skill set to cause some real damage. And this is a woman who will focus on all of the mistakes that everybody else makes without looking at what she is doing. Again, this is really important. I can feel myself getting pulled into this dynamic already today in certain conversations. It's just, you feel it boiling within me. And it takes a lot of strength, and it takes a lot of poise, and it takes some mastery to not just burn everything down around you, but to also stand in your power and your confidence without being pushed around either. And as you see, the polar bear here is going to give us exactly what we need in order to master this energy, which is about love and compassion and non-attachment. That is what the Buddha ultimately represents, as we see here as well. So there is an ability to form and create with this card. We are a sorcerer and of our own reality, okay? So there's trust, and there's warmth, and there's passion, and there's inspiration, and there's honor and spiritual vision. These are all the highest versions of what we can be with this card. And we're really feeling it today because we've allowed, to a certain extent, ourselves to tap into that inner voice and to receive insight, to receive wisdom, to know that our search within ourselves actually is going to reflect some mental maturity. And so now there's power, right? It's strength and power and confidence and spiritual vision that we ourselves are holding right now. So to go along with that, we see, again, the Six of Forces, the spiritual energy, the emotional. The power of our emotions is so incredible that it'll literally shape the landscape around us. This is why the power of manifestation is so potent when it comes from your emotions. It comes from your feelings, right? This is what shapes the landscape. So there is a never-ending life force that we have access to. And in fact, we can really draw our power from this place. So it's a time of very deep emotion and expansion of that psychic energy. The moon is still in Cancer. This is her home territory, and this is where we really get very deep into the core of who we are. And the more still that the emotions get, the deeper we're going to be able to see. And the clearer the reflection will be back to us, if we are looking in a pond, a still pond, right? Still waters run deep. But this is saying, now the forces are the fire energy in the Akashic Tarot, the wands. So we're looking at the fact that the water, again, like the Queen of Wands, the water is what provides the force, right? To make change, to transform, to create. And in this instance, it's literally creating and shaping the landscape. So this is a very powerful thing to be drawing our personal power from. And in fact, is running kind of like in the background in our subconscious, something that we're not actively aware of necessarily. If we are, it's because we are actively engaging our subconscious on a regular basis through our practices, through meditation, through any number of movement arts, even prayer, right? I mean, it's through the prayer that we kind of calm the chatter and focus in on one singular mindset in terms of our worship, right? Or surrender to divine source and asking for guidance, asking for inspiration, whatever it is we're praying for. This is very powerful, okay? Very, very powerful right now. The power of our emotions and our psychic energy is really, really ramping up right now. So when it comes to where we can put our conscious attention, now this is what is very interesting. The Buddha prepares, right? Don't move until you're ready. This individual, the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, is still and is focusing on the heart. It's a time of inner preparation before action. The tendency here with this Neptune-Mars opposition is to act before we're ready as a snapback, because it'll feel like we are losing ourselves as we dissolve into the collective ocean of potential here. And when your ego is driving, that is really scary, right? Because you think you're actually losing yourself. And the trick here is to surrender to this transcendental experience, whatever it is. Surrender to the will of God, surrender to source, surrender to the collective unconscious in a conscious way. And that is what the Buddha is representing in this image, right? You have to reach within to find your power, right? It's not going to come from outside of you. So we can really put our conscious attention and focus and release our power, this really potent energy, through an internalized preparation, right? It's so powerful. And you go back to the hermit. This is very similar energy in terms of you going within, listening to the inner voice, caring for the inner self, going into the inner light. And so this is where we can really release our energy. We can really put our conscious attention here today. This is the area of our conscious awareness, which is going to seem counterintuitive when you want to act out in some way, either aggressively or dogmatically or feeling oppressed, right? And as we see here, that is where we're headed anyway. So the Ten of Wands is oppression. It is Saturn, these two large, very strong wands, right, that are made out of they're clearly made out of like iron or steel, right? These two strong wands. And if you look on the top, they have this jester energy on the top. Like, I'm getting such a strong jester, trickster vibe with these two, but they're overlaid on all of these wands that are very balanced out and tipped with flames on either end, right? So there is a measure of oppression, because the Ten of Wands is the end of this cycle and the beginning of the next cycle, right? The 10 is the beginning and the end. It is the coming back around to that point in order to begin anew with a new Ace of Wands, for instance. So when fire is not made to rest on the ground, right? So when you suppress something like this, like fire, like your creative potential, like your power, like your transmutational power, your creative energy, right? What is you're passionate about? When there's excessive pressure like this, especially when it's reversed, because it's really inverted and there's resistance to it, you don't want to accept that there is this pressure being put on you in order to see, to transmute it, to move past it, to see what you can learn from it. It's just going to be resistance. Now, with the Buddha prepares here in terms of where we can put our conscious attention, I do feel like that this is an internalized feeling of oppression that could cause uncontrolled destructive burning. And we may see that outside of us. We may feel that within us, right? And it's very likely that we are going to feel this, and we're going to have to learn how to manage this in the moment and utilize the water energy, right? Its opposite element, right? Where the Queen of Wands is, in order to actually get something from this position, to recognize that it's the end of the cycle. And the cycle turns over when we realize that we are bearing a very heavy cross, okay? So when it's reversed as well, there's excessive pressure. Like I said, there's selfishness, there's material ends, there's dogmatism, there's aggression, and like I said, the cause for uncontrolled destructive burning when it's reversed. And so even we want to act out in some ways because it's so powerful and potent right now. We want to have that that kickback because of the opposition between Mars and Neptune. But this is really showing us that we can utilize it's not about being oppressed, right? And it's not about not taking action or being inactive. It is about turning this energy around and focusing it within ourselves and really again, the snake coiling around the neck of Shiva, taming our vital energies, using it as an engine within us to start, swirling around. It's like an inner vortex, but it will feel like on some level that we want to bust out of something. And I think we need to be prepared for that, even if we put our conscious attention on the preparation and the inner action and to reach within to find our power. Sometimes too, we have to acknowledge that it is in fact the oppression of the structures of the matrix, Saturn, and the very boundary of time and space and reality, Saturn. And, it's that oppression in some ways that allows us to find a new way to create, for those fires of creation to find a new avenue in which to express themselves as well. So there's a couple ways this can go today, or not even just today. What this is providing for us is a narrative, right? These are all archetypal symbols, just like a letter is a symbol, all coming together to create a narrative, a sentence, a story, right? And so just be mindful of the eruption that can happen as a result of this today. And if you really want to harness this Virgo energy, I think it's really going to assist us right now. And in a way that tames our vital energies, not suppress them, not oppress them, not to extinguish them either. We don't want to completely extinguish this. We want to tame it, right? And so that we can utilize it for creative purposes rather than having it used against us, right? Or to release it in a destructive way. Now, when it comes to this guidance, right, here's our Queen of Scrolls. Now she's upright. And we also have the Kiwi that is 2 days in a row in the exact same position. So when the Queen of Scrolls is around and she's upright, it's about bringing important information and inspiration to us. And it helps us move through the entryway into a new level of wisdom. And the Kiwi is about the walking meditation, right? The movement that is intentional, that allows for us to find stillness in movement, right? Because fire, there is an action behind it. Even fixed fire that is very solar, there is still action that is behind solar fire, right? Because it's it's nuclear fusion, right? So there's something still happening at the atomic level that is movement. But the stillness in the movement is what the Kiwi represents, the meditation in the movement, the intentional movement, the grounded movement. So it's even more important than it was yesterday, in my opinion, because the flow of power is very strong now. It's moving through us very, very strongly. And this Queen of Scrolls, again, these court cards representing us or actual people. Be aware that somebody can come to you that's going to help you move through this entryway, right? This is a phase of deepening understanding and a readiness to learn as well. And personal growth and expansive learning is also part of this energy. So it's either you stepping into this, you providing this for other people, or somebody coming to you that will fulfill this role. But again, it's really important that we are staying grounded and intentional and finding stillness in our movement through something akin to a walking meditation, however you want to look at it. Because this Six of Forces and this waterfall, the waterfall is something we can't control, right? We can harness it, right? Just like Niagara Falls can be harnessed to create electricity. We can harness this energy to create electricity, right? It turns the turbines that make electricity, but we have to be grounded. We have to allow ourselves to find stillness in the movement, that 0 point. And someone may come to us today in the guise of this Queen of Scrolls to deepen our understanding, give us the possibility of deepening our understanding and help us move through to a new level of wisdom. And the polar bear is it's a stand up for yourself and speak your truth respectfully and compassionately. Okay, let's go back to Buddhism for a minute. With no attachment, Buddhism, to outcome. These are both Buddhist tenets, right? This is compassion and then non-attachment to outcome, non-attachment to to anything really. And, that's certainly a really difficult path to walk, to not have attachment when we live in physical form. This is why it's the path to enlightenment. So we want to also express from our heart and a place of power. And you can only do that when you've prepared yourself by going within, right? So that you know your heart, you know what it means to be compassionate, you know that you can speak your truth respectfully and compassionately and have no attachment to the outcome. And again, that's a very difficult thing to do when you have all of this fire energy moving through you. You have all of this strong spiritual flow and emotion moving through you. You just want to use it to kind of burn everything down. You can be in your power. Just like the Buddha here, you can be in your power, speak your truth respectfully and compassionately, and not have the attachment to the outcome. Because as soon as you're attached to the outcome, this is again when your ego gets in the driver's seat and you're like, I want to express this because I want to change your mind. I want you to think like me. I want you to do what I think you should do. As soon as we let all of that go, this is where the real power comes from, right? Because it's again, it's like this vortex forming within us. And so the polar bear is giving us the guidance and the message that we can, in fact, still stand up for ourselves, speak our truth, and still have compassion and non-attachment. And it's going to come, again, from preparing ourselves, from drawing this power within us instead of trying to gather it from outside of us by other people doing what we think they should do. Doesn't mean you can't be strong in your expression. Believe me, people have called me to the carpet in the last 2 days, and if you're going to do that, then I'm going to tell you. And I have, but I can speak that truth respectfully without attacking people or their character. And I have no attachment to the outcome. If they don't agree with me, it's not like I failed, but you can still be very firm and strong in your expression at the same time. So, and along with that, the master artisan, I just think this is very fascinating. Something that stuck out to me that sometimes things, it's so layered with the tarot, for instance. And one of the things that I've noticed is if you look at the master, he's dropping all of these gems into the apprentice's hand. It never really occurred to me until today. Like, look at him drop all of these gems into the apprentice's open hands, right? Receiving from the master, right? Someone that has taken the time to master their craft, whatever it is, right? And again, that we as the apprentice in some ways are able to receive this teaching. In other ways, we can be the master by being the Buddha in this preparation, right? And going within and mastering our own skill, our own craft, whatever it is. And now we have the opportunity to offer this as well. So we can be on both sides of this simultaneously as well. So in some ways, we are the Buddha that everyone is waiting to hear from, just like in the card of the Buddha prepares, but not until you've mastered it. And you can't master it until you've gone within and actually mastered it within yourself, which is this master artisan. So our gifts lie in our ability to share compassionately and care and be loving, right? And so put yourself out there as an example of compassion and love with no attachment to the outcome. That is one way that you can embody this master energy. And remember, the hermit is about this wisdom that we search for. There is a mastery that comes about through Virgo, because what you're doing is mastering yourself to do what? To be of service. And this master artisan is of service to the apprentices that want to learn from the master. So we can be on both sides of this simultaneously. But I think that the master is meant to be a master of compassion, a master of love, a master of speaking your truth respectfully. So we are all in a position when we gather that power within us and really prepare ourselves to then step out and be able to offer the little gems that we have cultivated ourselves to the apprentice, whoever that is. And that could be something simultaneously within us. I'm not suggesting that everybody that's listening is like, I'm going to go out and be a master. I mean, you want to look at this a little bit more esoterically and apply it to your own journey as well. So really strong energy today. So let's look also at the astrology for today. Here we go. And I'm going to also pop over here, and there we go. And I'm also going to check in with the chat real quick. Okay. Alex, what I'll tell you is that, yeah, I'm perpetually not on time when it comes to streaming, but I had started, I'm doing them at 10 now, just because I have found that, for West Coast people, which is a lot, has been a lot of my audience, that 6 a.m. for them is a little early. So even that just extra hour has seemed to be just enough to to entice people to come on first thing in the morning. So that's why. But yeah, sometimes I'm just a little late because I get caught up in like too many things first thing in the morning. It's probably my most the morning is my most creative time for me, right? And so a lot comes through during the morning for me, and so I always try to cram a lot in. As the day progresses, it gets a lot harder for me to do this work in particular. It just kind of starts to fade away. Anyway, so here's our chart for not today. This we're going to show today. Today is the 2nd. There we go, the 2nd. And we have our moon in Cancer, like I said. So let's go back a little bit and look at our transits for today, because I think that, like I said, we'll look at, you can see Mars here is about to come into that opposition almost directly with Neptune today. And let's see here. All right, guys. And there's a lot today. There's a lot of different transits today. Oh, one thing that I never got to mention yesterday that I think really actually had a very strong impact on the shifting of energy is that Chiron has moved into its next degree in its retrograde. So when these larger outer planets and outer asteroids with very slow orbits, when they shift degrees, it's really noticeable, at least in my experience it is, because each degree has its own archetypal representation, and that's shown through the Sabian symbols. So when these larger transpersonal planets, the outer planets, or Chiron, or even like the larger, the further out orbits of the asteroids, and Eris, for instance, the dwarf planet Eris is even further out than Pluto. And so, she's been in Aries for who knows how long. I mean, I'd have to go back and really calculate that. But what I'm saying is that when these outer planets and objects move degrees, it's very noticeable. And Chiron now has shifted into the next degree in its retrograde. And so the areas, the general area of Chiron and Aries certainly hasn't changed, but the quality of the focus has changed. And it's gone from this really frustrated aspect of wanting something to happen that we know is embodied within us and our creative potential. And when it's not happening fast enough, it kind of triggers all of this shame and guilt and wounding and the victim narrative. But now it's moved back into a position, into a symbol that represents the polarization that happens when our consciousness becomes aware of a cosmic or divine order of things versus, not versus, but what happens is when the consciousness becomes aware that there is cosmic order, there is natural law, there is one law, and that is natural law, right? When the consciousness is aware of this, it immediately and inevitably polarizes the consciousness between that and human and social law, right? We start to realize that there is a difference. Oh, wow. And so Chiron's going to be in this degree for weeks and weeks, right? As it goes through its retrograde. And so this is going to be a focus. And as each person's individual consciousness, within themselves and their own potential to be themselves, when we all start to really wrap ourselves around this position and realize that within us there is we are subject to natural cosmic divine law, we will start to feel that polarization within us of that and human, social, man-made laws. And you can already start to see this happening, and it's just going to get more and more pronounced as Chiron continues through its retrograde through this degree. But this happened yesterday, and so something definitely shifted around this, and people are starting to become way more aware of this dynamic, and it's going to trigger people, right? Just like Chiron is going to endlessly trigger people anyway into this victim savior narrative, right? The wounding and shame of self that Chiron represents, that leads us to be a wounded healer as opposed to an actualized whole human being. we have to give up that identity in some ways. It's going to be this polarization within ourselves between God's law and human law that is going to really start to come to the surface. So why I bring this up is because the moon is first thing this morning or last night, depending on where you find yourself in the world, or later to, earlier in the hold on. Last night on the West Coast, middle of the night on the East Coast, coming into the early morning hours across the pond, let's put it that way, because the moon in Cancer was in a square to Chiron, right? So these are cross purposes. These are cardinal energies that are meeting in a 90-degree angle. They are cross purposes. They meet each other. They come into that, one broadsides the other, and they go spinning out of control. And this particular degree of Cancer is the trigger here. Right? The trigger of this wounding, right, is the difference between God's law and human law, right? Okay, so we immediately start to feel that polarization, and it's going to be a theme we're going to be working with, all of us on our own throughout this this cycle of moon in this, or Chiron in this degree of Aries, right? And this is why it's so important that we're allowing ourselves the time to reach for our inner power, because the degree that the moon is in Cancer is about revealing the latent worth in every experience, right? People are going to start really pushing against this and really having to deal with this reality within themselves, right? The difference between God's law and human law and what that means, right? Now, where the moon is in this beautiful moment, even though there's friction, even though it's uncomfortable, even though they're at cross purposes, there's something within us that if we can really feel into the latent worth of this experience in its deeper meaning, once we realize and it's revealed to us the deeper meaning of this polarization, this, as much as it's going to create some tension here and some friction, boy, we can really grow from this moment. And again, this is why the inner preparation and the moon in Cancer right now is so important in this moment, because we're going to want to come back to this moment. We're going to want to remember this as we go through this Chiron phase in this degree, okay? Now, the moon then comes along to sextile our friend Uranus, who's retrograde now. By the way, on the new moon on the 6th, I'm going to be putting this report together for tomorrow, but I've been doing these lunar transit readings for people. So I will tell you that the new moon is going to be in a direct trine to Uranus. So just wait for that activation, that seed point of a new cycle to find a lot of traction with and supporting Uranus doing what Uranus does best, which is radically reorient ourselves in order to awaken. So, and individuate, right? Uranus really forces individuation because it turns everything on its side to give you a whole new perspective. And it's usually very disruptive and very destructive. And since it's retrograde, it's all kind of like within us, right? Our own experiences that are internalized. So the moon today comes into a sextile, right? 60-degree angle. This is an investment opportunity between these two energies. And the moon is in conjunction with Sirius, okay? So keep this in mind too, because the new moon on Monday is in Virgo, but it's a Sirian starseed marking. So it's going to be a new moon that is a Sirian starseed activation. So again, this is important because we're going to get a nice little emotional and intuitive connection to Uranus at this moment, and what this whole thing is going to represent, this whole next lunar cycle. And there is a need that exists in a very early stage of our growth as individuals, as characters, as personalities. There is a need to materialize the spiritual, right? So that we can experience it in the material, right? Because we're material beings. We live in a body. We live in a material dimension. And so along this process, as we are developing and growing in our personality, we need on some level to materialize what is very immaterial in a lot of ways, and will continue to be immaterial because it's spiritual, right? It's something that you can't actually materialize, but we want something, right? We're going to need something to materialize this very immaterial type of experience. And the Syrian star seeds, this is their wheelhouse, right? This is exactly what they are so good at doing. And I shouldn't even say they, we, right? Because this is part of my starseed frequency as well. This is what they are so able to do, is to bring this immaterial into a material reality through vibration. This is what the shamans do. Okay. So the sextile is going to allow us to apply this materialization, this ability to materialize what is immaterial in order to face really adverse circumstances. I mean, Uranus is still in the degree that is challenging us and having us really bear down to face the storm in a very material way, right? And Taurus is the objective reality around us, right? It is the material world. And so we can bring, it's like the spiritual experience of addressing this very material challenge that Uranus is constantly uprooting our reality in order for us to get this, right? To awaken through this process. And so in this moment with the moon, it's so good. It's so, oh man, it's really going to connect back to not only where that Six of Forces is, but where the Hermit is and the work that the Hermit does. So we want to bring it into something very immaterial, into a material experience, so that we can in fact know it within ourselves. And when we do that, we can apply this to a very disruptive Uranus that has been challenging everybody in their physical health, in their bodies, in their resources, in their physical reality, very strongly. Okay, and so this is an opportunity to apply and invest our own internal spiritual subconscious energy through the moon into this process that has been very difficult, no doubt. No doubt. And was really brought to our awareness at the last full moon in Aquarius, because Uranus stationed retrograde right before that Aquarian full moon. That was really powerful. Just to give you an example, that time frame when I was at the coast, the rest of my family showed up, and one of my family members had sustained a very serious injury while in the ocean, and that was right then, right? So there's kind of an example, right? Something very radically shifted in terms of personal health and safety, and in order to stimulate something in terms, showing us how we awaken through these adverse circumstances, through our healing process, through the way that we deal with the storm. Our character is really tested right now, and Uranus is just, relentless, as Uranus really is. But Uranus also is showing us that there is something more than what we see as the structure of reality. There is an energy that is pervasive in all of life that is seemingly it seems like we can't access it, but we absolutely can, right? It is frequency and vibration that is what creates reality. So Uranus and Aquarius is being able to connect to that. So that's just an example of Uranus and how it can make real, right now especially, how that transition was very palpable and very real for people. So the moon sextiling there is a real gift today. Now, the moon is going to come into a trine with all of this Pisces energy, right? It's going to trine Pallas Athena, it's going to trine Neptune, and then we'll come into a sextile with Mars in Virgo. So again, the trine is this very harmonious, very balanced connection between these two water signs, right? Neptune in Pisces and the moon in Cancer, both in their houses of rulership. This is also really very strong. And then we'll also sextile Mars at the same time in Virgo, where it is in opposition to Neptune. And so this position here of the moon and with Neptune and Mars is like we are longing for some sort of transcendent happiness in us, but the soul has to be open to it. We have to be open to it and waiting it and creating the space for it to come in. And so this is finding a lot of support, right? And is very harmonious with where Neptune is, that is pulling away all of the fog to show us that we have to give all of ourselves to substantiate something. Or if we are unconscious of it, then we're giving all of ourselves anyway to substantiate somebody else's thing, right? Or substantiating unconscious desires because we have not actually done the work to see what's going on in our own shadow. Now, the sextile to Mars means, again, we're going to invest this energy into where Mars is, which is asking us to use our drive and our warrior energy to tame those vital energies, not to let them run amok or to take total control of us. We want to tame them in order to apply them to the highest purpose. And so if we allow ourselves to be open to the highest possible, the highest possible ideal, not only is Neptune and the moon so beautifully connected to each other in our emotions and in our feelings and our intuition and our connection to cosmic consciousness, we can apply this to Mars, and it will give us a reason in some ways to tame those vital energies. It'll give us a space in order to direct them when they are tamed, right? If they're not just like burning uncontrollably all over the place, or the warriors not thrashing around like without any focus, then there's a space within us in order to direct those energies, right? And so that's and this is happening by the end of today. You see here, 8:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So by the end of today, we're going to see if we've created this space within us, if we've allowed ourselves to find the deeper meaning and the latent worth in what's happening and the deeper meaning to all of it. And if we can feel that, if we can access that from a feeling-based place as opposed to just constantly acting out. And then on top of that, the sun in Virgo is going to be in a square to asteroid Juno, which is up here in conjunction with Antares. And we're talking about a mutable square, right? And so, Juno is really inviting us right now to connect back into the body in order to understand the nature of our commitments, our contractual obligations, what it means to balance the scales, right? And the betrayal when we give ourselves over to trust, right? Each betrayal begins with trust. So there cannot be any betrayal unless you open yourself to trust and you commit yourself to a relationship. And that's what Juno represents, asteroid Juno. She's the wife of Zeus, right? So she's always dealing with his fuckery, that's for sure. And because Zeus is all about the big picture, right? Zeus is the advocate for our collective value system, but it's not, he's not dealing with the details, right? He's certainly not analyzing anything either. He is just following through with the big picture at any given moment. Whereas his wife, Hera, or Juno, is really holding those scales too. And she is always working towards balancing them out. And sometimes she does things that are very vengeful in order to do so. And we have to be aware of the potential for us to act out if we feel betrayed. So again, the square here to the sun is because the sun's in Virgo, right? Mastering ourselves, disciplining ourselves, purifying ourselves, and expressing ourselves through this process of internalized mastery, right? It's real easy to act out of revenge when we feel betrayed. It's another thing entirely to utilize that to turn that around and apply that to ourselves and our own process of inner mastery. So by the end of today as well, that's going to be something that comes up. So you're going to see by the end of today, I'm going to be presented with all of these opportunities to really harness all of this and harness our own personal power from within rather than letting it all go and being kind of wasted. So again, taming our vital energies is so important today because they're becoming stronger and stronger, and people are getting incredible downloads, right? They're getting incredible insight. They're being infused with this creative energy. And it's important and it's potent, but we have to tame it. I'm not saying we should suppress it, not repress it, right? We're not pushing it away and putting it under the carpet or shaming it into a corner. We are taming it, right? So when it's time to use it appropriately and for the highest version, we are ready to do so with compassion and love in our hearts, not revenge and wanting to destroy because of feeling betrayed. So I think we're going to just leave it there, my friends. That is plenty to work with today, I would say. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Remember that if you are watching this on YouTube, BitChute, or Odysee, whenever you interact with this content through your subscriptions, your comments, by sharing it, by hitting that like button, you actually do support the content being, spread to a larger audience. And that's really, if you find this inspiring and helpful, so will other people most likely. And so when you interact with the content, it really does actually support the work. So I thank you for that. And I hope everyone is doing well. Take very good care of yourselves today. I'm still offering the flash sale for the lunar transit readings. This new moon is wow. And the next one too, the October new moon, is even more important. So the September new moon is really, it's a Syrian starseed activation. It's really potent for getting us really tuned into our own inner mastery. And so as this moon cycle is finishing up from the new moon in Leo, right, we are preparing to set new seeds of intention. So if you book by the 6th, it's still only $44 for a reading that shows how this next lunar cycle is going to impact you based on your natal chart. So all that information is in the description box in terms of the website and finding me on social media, of course. And I think I'm going to start live streaming just little snippets, little tidbits here on Telegram, since now that is an option. And I'm really stoked about that, actually. So take care, you guys. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.